Sex is a battlefield. Animals will go to every extreme to mate and ensure their survival. Without sex, a species is history. Its genes a dead end. Sex drives evolution. And evolution drives sex. Scientists are studying a marvel of evolution. Over millions of years, evolution has built the protruding jaw and razor-sharp teeth of the ocean's master predator.
500 million years ago, sharks really invented what people would call sex.
400 million years ago, sharks became one of the first vertebrates to evolve a penis. Over millions of years, the penis proved so valuable that it evolved independently in animals as different as insects, birds, and reptiles. 700 million years ago, sharks, fish, and other vertebrates have yet to evolve. Sea life is instead comprised of simple, single-celled creatures. To pass on their genes, they don't have to partner up. They can reproduce by themselves. The first animals to adopt sexual reproduction emerged 600 million years ago. But the sex they practiced is not what humans might imagine. These passive creatures, relatives of modern coral, were tightly anchored to the sea floor. How can you mate when you can't move? Cast sperm and eggs on the waves and hope they meet. Each summer, billions of coral polyps simultaneously launch their reproductive cells into the current. Each coral releases both sperm and egg, but instead of combining with each other, they wait until they encounter the seeds of another coral. No one knows how they do it.
About 570 million years ago, in a very brief period of time, we see the origin of many different, often very complex body forms, some of which are still with us today. Many forms that resemble modern invertebrates, crustaceans. We even see the first fish.
These early fish could move like no other creatures that came before. Instead of relying on ocean currents to carry their fate, males could directly target the female's eggs with their sperm. But even this method of mating had its pitfalls. It would take another 200 million years for evolution to come up with a new plan, which is where sharks come in. In sharks, evolution gave rise to an innovation that allowed males to deploy sperm directly inside the females.
Sharks invented sex, so to speak. This is just a huge difference from what we see in animals that lived 500 million years ago.
Internal fertilization has been a foundation of sharks' 400 million year reign as the ocean's top predators. For hundreds of millions of years, animals would remain confined to the Earth's oceans. 370 million years ago, a unique lineage of fish began to move towards land. Called tetrapods, they evolved legs from fins. In time, those legs became sturdy enough to let them move out of the water. But this new world presented new problems. Reptiles developed internal fertilization. And then they went beyond, evolving an extraordinary adaptation to protect their young. The amniotic egg. This marvel of evolutionary engineering not only nourished the developing young within, its hard shell kept the egg from drying out. The amniotic egg gave reptiles the ability to conquer land, reproducing, spreading, and growing on a whole different scale. And for the dinosaurs, this scale would be a big problem. When you're 40 feet long and weigh 6 tons, how do you do it? Paleontologist Ken Carpenter has puzzled for years over the mystery of dinosaur reproduction. In the feline position, with the female's head lowered and tail lifted, the problem of the male's enormous weight would be lifted off the female's back. At the same time, the position would allow easy access for the male. Carpenter's theory is the first to offer a workable answer to the mystery of dinosaur sex, and the first to explain how dinosaurs were able to reproduce their way into history as the unrivaled rulers of Earth for 160 million years. 65 million years ago, an asteroid 6 miles wide hurtles down from the sky and smashes into the Gulf of Mexico. The impact signals the end of the dinosaur age. Their extinction claims half of all species, turning the Earth into a wasteland. Animals will do anything to mate. The drive to pass on genes and ensure survival of the species is so strong that it causes evolutionary changes. This process is called sexual selection.
It's a type of natural selection, but it's the kind of selection for the kind of traits that evolved not to survive another day, but to win at the mating game.
To be successful, in evolutionary terms, your genes have to be in the next generation. And females can often have really weird criteria by which they choose which male they're going to mate with. Sexual selection has had huge consequences. Males of a species, they have to compete with each other to find a female. It gives rise to a whole different set of behaviors and appearances in animals to compete with other males and try to get a female mate.
For example, a moose uses its antlers to fight other moose in order to win the opportunity to copulate with certain females. So there's two types of traits that evolve for sexual selection. One are traits simply to fight off members of your own gender, and others are traits to attract the opposite.
With primates like macaques, sex moves beyond its primary function and is put to many different uses. The scientists call these behaviors sexual currency.
Primates have developed sexual reproduction to an elaborate art. No longer is it just a physical coming together with no consequences other than reproduction. Now it's the fulcrum of many different aspects of primate societies.
A lot of the primates will exchange food for sex.
Human beings began to emerge as distinct from our primate cousins just a few million years ago.
When our ancestors came down out of the trees and began to stand up on 2 feet instead of 4, they also changed some of their sexual anatomy.
Helen Fisher studies the evolution of human sex.
The female vaginal canal is no longer tipped backwards the way it is among chimpanzees. It evolved to move somewhat forward, probably for easier access during the missionary position.
As the female's anatomy changed, so did the male's. The penis had to reach deeper into the female's body, so it evolved to become significantly larger.
At some point during human evolution, we began to not only to stand up on 2 feet instead of 4, but the brain got to be too large for the birth canal. At that point, women began to have to bear their babies sooner so that they could get out of the birth canal.
No one knows how long the first human mothers carried their young. But we do know that today, a 21-month pregnancy would be necessary for a human baby to be born as fully developed as a newborn chimp. With every human born essentially premature, family bonds became a necessity for survival of the species. And that necessity, argues Fisher, explains the mystery of love. And now, humans are going a step further, taking our evolution into our own hands and separating it from the act of sex.
Sex has become futuristic. There's all kinds of ways now to basically bypass sex. We can clone individuals in a petri dish. There's all sorts of ways to fertilize individuals without engaging in intercourse.
What is occurring today is that biology is beginning to manipulate those processes to alter its own self and to take control of its own future evolution. So it's becoming a very conscious thing, and 100 years, 200 years from now, as we move forward, the process of human evolution is going to be directed by human choice.
Gregory Stock is a biophysicist and the author of a book entitled Redesigning Humans. He is an advocate of human genetic engineering.
And I could see a time when it's viewed as just kind of careless to conceive of children by the old ways, where it's just some random meeting of egg and sperm. How could you be so careless about something as important as a child?
Stock believes the logical first step will be genetic screening, a process in which couples will be able to bring their sperm and egg together in the lab to generate multiple embryos. Then pick the one with the most desirable traits.
So I think it'll be the parents who will make choices about their children that are a little bit different from themselves, but really resonate with their own personalities. If they're really outgoing, they'll want children that are outgoing. If they're really conscious about their own intelligence, they'll choose kids that have a little leg up in that realm. If they're really athletic, they're going to want an athlete. And I see an enormous diversity as we go out into the future.
Genetic engineering in humans is a very risky activity. The problem is that by introducing variation, we might not know what all the consequences will be. We may insert a gene that we think causes one effect, but in fact it will cause other effects and disrupt the normal functioning of our chromosomes.
For most scientists, the thought that the human animal would drop a behavior that is the product of millions of years of evolution